All right, we're going to start in about 30 seconds. Apologize for the slight delay. We had some administrative matters that we had to straighten out before we got started. All right, I'm going to call to order the governing board meeting of the St. Johns River Water Management District. Today is February 11th, 2025. It's a little after 10 a.m. in the morning. If we could all rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you very much. I'm going to start with a roll call. Vice Chair Gabby White.
Present.
Mr. Oliver.
Present.
Mr. Peterson. Present. Mr. Atwood. Mr. Bornick. General Burnett. Here, Mr. House.
Here, sir.
Ms. Price. And my name is Rob Bradley, and I am present as well.
Mr. Chair, please let the record show 5 present, 3 here, sirs. Sorry.
Good point. Okay, we got a here. Yes. They're all synonyms, so we will describe ourselves as everyone here today with no absences. Perfect. All right. As we always do, our first item on the agenda is Miss Robin Hudson sharing with us our employee recognitions for the month. You're recognized, Robin.
Thank you. Good morning. I'm Robin Hudson,
morning.
Human Resources Director. First, we'd like to congratulate Briar Palmer, the February Employee of the Month. Briar is a Senior Software Quality Assurance Analyst working in the Office of Information Technology. She is recognized for demonstrating the district's core values to accept accountability and achieve results. Briar's primary responsibility is quality assurance, ensuring the applications developed by IT meet the highest standards. She focuses on writing test scripts for regulatory systems and testing new developments. Briar consistently seeks opportunities to contribute projects where she can make a difference. Thank you, Briar. Congratulations. A 10-year service award for J.P. Flint, Surveying and Mapping Specialist in the Bureau of District Projects and Construction. JP is responsible for the Survey Services Elevation Program processes and the district survey closure reports to ensure land parcels meet district standards for survey closure and location within our GIS layers. JP conducts survey closure reviews on conservation easements and works closely with the Office of General Counsel in interpreting report results. JP's background as a survey rodman on the field crew and as a mapping specialist have given him a breadth of experience and knowledge in data gathering and data processing and field elevation for district monitoring wells. JP completed a project to scan all district survey records into a digital format. This project required scanning and quality assuring over 8,000 work order files. JP is known for his kindness and willingness to assist others. He is a highly valued member of the survey team. Congratulations on your service to the district. A 30-year service award for Rob Brooks, Supervising Hydrologist in the Bureau of Water Resource Information. Rob is a supervising hydrologist in the Bureau of Water Resource Information. As a professional geologist, he provides oversight to hydrogeological services, including well construction, geophysical logging, and artesian well abandonment. Rob has extensive experience in all facets of exploratory drilling, monitor well construction, aquifer performance testing, and artesian well abandonment. Rob pioneered the application of wireline coring techniques for exploration of the lower Floridan aquifer. This technique has saved time and money in the construction of lower aquifer wells. Rob has been involved in the construction of over 800 Floridan aquifer wells. For his contributions, Rob received an Award of Excellence and a Meritorious Service Award. Thank you, Rob, for 30 years of dedicated service to the district. A 35-year service award for Craig McLean, Water Conservation Coordinator in the Bureau of Water Supply Planning. Craig serves as the Water Conservation Coordinator for the North Florida Regional Water Supply Planning Area. His work was key during the 2020 water shortage season in developing relationships, leading an internal team, recommending courses of action, and coordinating with other water management districts. His wealth of knowledge has allowed him to serve as the lead on completing state-required legislative reports, developing and guiding regional water supply planning efforts, and conducting interactive public outreach through town hall-type workshops. His coworkers note that he has a strong dedication to team success and team building. While serving at the district, Craig has also made significant contributions to our community. He has had a leadership role in the local Boy Scout program and has been recognized for his efforts for Rails to Trails projects. Thank you, Craig, and congratulations on 35 years of service to the district. And today we have 2 retirement awards, and we're sad to see both these people go. And first, we would like to recognize Bill Cody, who is a supervising professional engineer in the Bureau of District Projects and Construction. Today, we honor and celebrate Bill Cody's career and retirement. Bill has been a vital team member and leader for district projects, construction, and engineering for over 25 years. Bill led the district designs and his staff with engineering excellence unparalleled in the state's water management districts. As the district's only structural engineer, Bill has been the lead design engineer on most of our flood control structure rehabilitation projects, as well as many other critical water resource projects. Bill received meritorious service awards for the Burrow Lock rehabilitation and Moss Block Lock rehabilitation designs. Bill has been the engineer record on dozens of projects for the district, including structures for Harris Bayou, Sunny Hill Restoration, the Fellsmere Water Management Area, and many aspects of the world-renowned Upper Basin Project. Both district colleagues and external agency value Bill's engineering expertise with his 47 years as a licensed professional engineer. Congratulations, Bill, on your accomplished career, and we wish you well in your retirement. And also a retirement award for Paul Feiner, Geographic Information Systems Analyst in the Office of Information Technology. For over 19 years, Paul has been a vital part of the district, collaborating with staff across various divisions to provide geospatial analysis, innovative solutions, and GIS-related support. His expertise in managing the district's extensive GIS library, which encompasses imagery, LIDAR, elevation data, parcel data, and numerous other data sets, has ensured that these critical resources are cataloged, efficiently stored, and readily accessible to staff. Paul's contributions have been invaluable in enabling the district to utilize geospatial technology effectively to achieve its mission. Throughout his career, Paul's role has allowed him to collaborate on numerous high-impact initiatives. He has provided geospatial expertise to support projects including the Central Florida Water Initiative, water supply planning, minimum flows and levels, and enterprise GIS deployments. Paul's exceptional technical expertise and passion for GIS have earned him widespread respect and appreciation. Thank you, Paul, for your service to the district, and we wish you well in your retirement.
Well, congratulations to Bill and Paul on their well-deserved retirement, and congratulations to all who were recognized today. Thank you. Thank you. All right, we're going to move to item 2, the hydrologic conditions report. Mr. Miller, you're recognized.
Thank you. Good morning, Chairman Bradley and members of the Governing Board. I'm Tim Miller, Bureau Chief of the Bureau of Water Resource Information, presenting the February hydrologic conditions report representing data from the month of January. Beginning first with monthly rainfall. Rainfall in January arrived with a few frontal systems, in particular Winter Storm Enzo, which brought above average precipitation, especially to the northern counties, as you can see on the map. Some locations within Nassau, Baker, and Duval counties had up to 8 inches of rain through the month. Average totals across the district were above the district-wide monthly average by 0.41 inches. 8 counties were above their monthly average, with the 3 northern counties I mentioned receiving around twice their normal monthly rainfall. Of the counties below, 10 were below average, and most were less than an inch below normal. Countywide rainfall totals range from a high of 6.67 inches for Baker County to a low of 1.48 inches for Okeechobee County. Moving next to rainfall over the past 12 months, the district-wide annual rainfall total is 2.76 inches above the annual average of 51.01 inches. Counties through the central and northern portions of the district continue to have been the primary recipients through the year. 11 counties are above normal, with Nassau and Volusia counties more than 8 inches above their averages. Of the 7 counties below their 12-month average, 4 southern counties are 4 inches or more below normal, and that includes Brevard, Osceola, Indian River, and Okeechobee counties. Countywide totals ranged from the lowest value of 44.29 inches for Okeechobee County to the highest value of 62.74 inches for Nassau County, which is nearly 11.5 inches above average. Surface flows across the district at the start of January were primarily in the average range. Looking first to the south, the St. Johns River sites in the upper and middle basins remained in the average range, and the Econ and Wekiva River sites decreased from high to average flows typical at this time of year. The St. Mary's River on our northern boundary saw an increase from low to average flow, while the tidally influenced site at Jacksonville was in the very high range. In the next series of slides, we'll review the status of water levels at selected long-term lake sites. Overall, levels have held steady or had modest declines. Looking first at Lake Brooklyn, water level decreased 0.2 of a foot over the previous month, remaining well above average. Lake Weir had no change from December and is just below the average water level. Water level at Lake Winnimisset had a decrease of 0.3 of a foot through the month, but continues to be just below the maximum observed level for this time of year. Lake Apopka's level had no change over the previous month, remaining above its average and very near regulation schedule. Water level in Blue Cypress Lake decreased 0.1 of a foot. It also remains above the average water level, but below regulation schedule through the month. Conditions in the upper Floridan aquifer have remained fairly steady through the month and are healthy for this time of year. Even with some shifts from the previous month, water levels continue to be in the normal or high range across the district. Overall, we are in great shape in relation to groundwater levels, and changes in the aquifer remain on trend with recent hydrologic conditions. Looking next at the district-wide index value for aquifer conditions, we see that the upper Floridan aquifer well index value at the end of January was 71, which is the upper end of the normal range. Again, this continues to show the healthy status of the aquifer for this time of year, especially as we approach our driest months and progress towards the typical annual lows expected in May and June. In the next series of slides, I review changes in flow at selected spring sites with long-term monitoring. The monthly mean for flow in Silver Springs decreased 30 cubic feet per second from the previous monthly mean, and flow continues to be in the high range. At Blue Spring, the monthly mean showed a decrease of 34 cubic feet per second in January, with flow remaining in the high range through the month. At Rock Springs, flow had a slight decrease from the previous monthly mean and is near the top of the high range. A slight decrease of just 2 cubic feet per second in flow was observed in the overall monthly mean at Wekiva Springs, and although trending downward, flow remains in the high range here as well. And finally, the well plugging program began the year by plugging 17 wells in January. The abandonment of those wells provided an additional savings of over 2.86 million gallons of water per day, which brings the total water saved by this program since November 2020 to just over 78.4 million gallons per day. This concludes my presentation of the hydrologic conditions report, and I'm happy to take any questions.
Are there any questions? All right, thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we're going to move next to the consent agenda. That's items 8 through 15. Do any board members wish to pull any items for discussion? Seeing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
Move to approve.
All right.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to approve the consent agenda. Is there any discussion on the matter? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? The motion passes unanimously. The consent agenda, items 8 through 15, is approved. Let's move to item 4, consideration of district-wide agricultural cost share with Straight Line Tree Farm. Ms. Archer, you're recognized.
Good morning, Chair and Governing Board members. Suzanne Archer, Technical Program Manager for Agricultural Assistance, here to present agenda item number 4. You can see the eligibility requirements for the program on the screen. The district-wide Ag Cost Share program has now been available for 10 years. In those 10 years, 91 ag operations have taken advantage of the program, and a little over $17 million has been provided in funding, resulting in an estimated 11 million gallons per day water saved, an estimated annual reduction of 411,000 pounds of total nitrogen, and 73,000 pounds of total phosphorus. The project we are recommending for funding approval today is Straight Line Tree Farm in Lake County, shown by the red star on the slide, and located in the Ocklawaha River Strategic Planning Basin. The other projects listed are for those that fell within the Executive Director's signature authority or were previously approved by the Governing Board. Project types include irrigation retrofits, irrigation conversions, and precision fertilizer equipment. Straight Line Tree Farm originally requested another groundwater well at their site south of Clearmont. CUP staff approached the ag team and asked if we could work with the operation to discuss the possibility of using surface water from a nearby canal for their nursery expansion due to resource constraints in the South Lake County area. Ag team staff performed an irrigation audit on site and talked to the nursery owner about the Ag Cost Share program and how it could help him offset the cost of converting a portion of his operation to surface water. Not only is he now proposing the surface water conversion, he is also upgrading technology to include soil moisture sensors, controllers, and pump automation, which is the project before you today. The requested action on Agenda Item 4 is authorization for the Executive Director to execute a contract as shown on the slide.
All right, are there any questions regarding agenda item number 4? Any questions? Is there a motion to approve it?
Yes, second.
We got a motion and a second. That's Abbott with the motion and Burnett with the second. Is there any discussion regarding this pending motion? Seeing none, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? It is approved unanimously. Thank you.
Thank you.
Great work. That's what we're here to try to accomplish. Working with our landowners and friends to make the environment better and improve their bottom line in the process. I like it. All right, item 5. This is for informational purposes. Andy Canyon is going to give us an update on research results related to the ongoing DEP-funded biosolids investigation. You are recognized to discuss.
Morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I'm Andy Canyon, Supervising Environmental Scientist in the Bureau of Environmental Sciences. Today, I'm here to give you an update on our ongoing applied research into the water quality effects of land application of Class B biosolids. You may recall that our initial work was to look at the relationship between Class B biosolids application permit reports and district water quality monitoring data. The most recent work we completed in this past fall was focused on what is occurring at the scale of individual fields. This is illustrated in the photo of shallow wells on this slide. This is what wells that we use to monitor superficial groundwater on an actively grazed pasture that was receiving biosolids.
Oh, was that? Could you go back?
Sure.
I'm confused. Okay, so this is the picture you were just describing.
Yes.
I mean,
sorry.
No, it's my bad.
Yes, the title slide.
You were describing this is one of your
Yes.
monitoring devices
Right.
In the field right now. on
Yes.
this issue.
Yes.
Got it. All right. Go ahead.
Before I go into the project updates, I want to remind you of some important information regarding biosolids. Biosolids refers to sewage sludge that has been treated to meet state and federal regulatory requirements necessary to be land applied as soil conditioner or fertilizer. Biosolids are over-enriched with phosphorus relative to nitrogen, so they carry the potential for significant phosphorus pollution, which stimulates harmful algal blooms. This is why the land application of Class B biosolids was essentially banned in large areas of South Florida.
Why was it only banned in South Florida and not the rest of the state?
I think this next slide might address
right.
at least the reason for it. South Florida has a clear challenge with phosphorus enrichment, and this was behind the legislature's 2007 passage of the Northern Everglades and Estuaries Protection Program, which restricted land application of Class B biosolids in the Okeechobee, St. Lucie, and Caloosahatchee watersheds. As a result, permitted application areas increased significantly in nearby basins, and by 2013, most of this newly permitted area was in the upper St. Johns River Basin.
So you're a doctor, you study these things, right? That's what you do for a living. Okay. So what was the basis for the legislature deciding that in South Florida that this should not occur and should be banned? Why did they do that? I mean, we seem to be studying it like we don't know that it's bad,
Right.
but they obviously made a conclusion that it's bad, right?
Yes, I think the 2007 legislation was intended to basically have no net import of phosphorus into those watersheds, and so the biosolids.
Why did they do that?
Because of phosphorus enrichment of Lake Okeechobee and the Everglades.
Right, because they thought that would be a bad thing for the environment.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
And why is that a bad thing for the environment?
The phosphorus enrichment?
Yeah.
Well,
let's talk.
in Lake
Let's let the
Okeechobee,
public. Let's talk about it.
It can cause harmful algal blooms in lake systems. It can also cause shifts in the wetland communities in the Everglades because they are naturally really low phosphorus systems, and so you can shift plant communities and also in the Everglades, and you can also shift the algal communities in the lakes.
So when we leave South Florida, move up to the north, does the world change and all normal things we know about science and all the things you just described cease to exist in our watersheds?
No, I would not say that. I would say
okay,
the mechanisms are the same.
So they had a basis, a scientific basis to ban it in South Florida because of concern over that you just described.
Right, and a little bit of the nuance there is it wasn't a ban; it was you can apply it, but you have to show that all the phosphorus you bring into your farm goes out of your farm. So it made it very hard to prove or to put together documentation that you could apply that extra phosphorus. So it was it was kind of a de facto ban.
Yeah, right. It's a ban.
Right.
The whole thing was written to be a ban. Correct?
Yeah, I'm not super familiar with legislation, but
right. Is the practical result that it resulted in a ban?
I believe so.
Okay. Are you aware of any applications occurring in that region?
Not in those three watersheds because
right. Okay.
Because of the regulatory requirements.
Got it. All right. Any other questions? Yeah.
Yes, sir. Mr. Chairman, when we visit the 300,000 acre Desiree Ranch run by the Mormons, really efficient looking operation, but they were having significant problems with this because I guess under 300,000 acres, they're trying to designate some portion for these biosolids. Do we know where that is, Mike? Through the chair.
My understanding is that they've decided to stop applying biosolids to their lands.
So the South Florida's affluent is shipping their effluent up to us.
You can answer. That's a question.
That was
go ahead.
Yeah,
Mike.
That was the effect of that legislation and the ban. Has basically made it, impractical or impossible to be able to apply the biosolids within that area. And so what happened was they looked for the next nearest place to be able to apply them, which happened to be into the north, which moves it into the upper St. Johns River Basin watershed, which is what his slide here is showing. After that shift, we see a significant increase in the amount of biosolids that's applied within the upper St. Johns River Basin.
And to finish
Thank you,
this
Chairman.
point, the Deseret, is my understanding, has made that decision to stop doing it, right?
That's my understanding.
That was my understanding too. And flowers are deserved. Seriously, thank you as a property owner for making that decision to move forward. I hope we stick with it, and that is much. Assuming that's the case and that's going to continue forward, that's great news. But anyway, go ahead.
You know, but they're not the only landowners in that area.
Correct.
So there is a lot being applied down there. And as a natural result of banning it, if you just look, I-95 comes straight up the East Coast, and the quickest place for transportation costs is to come over the line into St. John's, and it ends up being applied in the upper basin predominantly. Is that a fair assessment?
Yes, I believe it's the closest area with a lot of pasture land that you can put it on.
Yes, you're recognized, Mr. Pornick.
I've got a lot of concerns and a lot of issues with this. I want to support agriculture on this issue, but I've got a concern or two about, as hard as the staff works and as hard as we work as a governing board to clean up our basin, and we have made huge strides. I feel not addressing this issue is negating a lot of those great steps. Trying to make the Indian River Lagoon a healthier lagoon because of a lot of the upper basin drains directly into the lagoon. Aside from the impact on the St. John's and on all the lakes and water bodies. So I have a concern with that, and I've had one for a long time. The loadings that I know of along, and I go by boat up and down the lagoon, and I know for a fact that the golf courses that are accepting gray water I see algae growth I've never seen before until they started to accept the gray water. And I've seen it in the golf course ponds. I've seen it in the Indian River Lagoon, and what was pristine, clear, red fishing areas that I loved that I no longer fish. And it was directly adjacent to golf courses in the Barrier Island taking gray water. So not only with the biosolids, but the gray water. And if you look at the research, and I think the staff here will confirm it, I've got concerns with all of the chemicals that humans ingest being a part of the wet and dry biosolids issue.
Oh, wait.
And so I've got issues with that because some of the research indicates it might even be in the cattle meat that's produced. So we're ingesting things and through the human system, and it's showing back up in the system of cows that we eat. So there's a lot of questions. I would, as a governing board, I think it would behoove us to take a good hard look at something that would impact all the hard work that Mike and his staff have done over the years to make sure the St. John's and Indian River Lagoon are the best that they can be.
Amen. Progress is being made on this issue, but it's just not fast enough, and it's just going way too slowly.
Yep.
And there's always something. But anyway, if you continue your presentation, I know that Chris has some things that he would like to either ask or perhaps
Later.
later on. He wants to hear the whole.
I might be
presentation.
stepping on your presentation. I'll
All right.
wait for the
Anytime.
see
Well,
what
that's what
else
we
you
do,
got.
Chris. We just.
I know.
But yes, thank
I'll
you.
hold comments
Yes,
till
sir.
I hear everything.
Yes.
So
You're recognized.
All right, thank you. So, as we talked about, there was the shift. Most applications coming into the Upper St. Johns River Basin, and the bar chart here illustrates that. We put these data together by looking into the DEP's permit records of application because this is a regulated program, so we could actually total up the amount of biosolids application in the Upper St. Johns Basin, and that's shown on the bar chart. And those are the y-axis, just for reference. That's tons of nitrogen or phosphorus, not pounds. So the next graphic illustrates our close working relationship with DEP on this issue and the general timeline of action. Our initial data collection and discussions with DEP began in 2015. Our original analyses were focused on comparing the timing, location, and quantity of biosolids application against the trends at district water quality monitoring sites. We found a strong relationship between increased biosolids application and increasing phosphorus concentration. DEP, recognizing the problem, responded by convening a Technical Advisory Committee, or TAC, in 2018. We continued to collect data and made presentations on our findings to the TAC. DEP was interested in having us continue to investigate management issues on biosolids and provided the district $1.9 million in funding for this applied research that we're going to discuss today in 2020. I want to also point out that DEP also initiated rule updates after the TAC, and these were a source of guidance for the updates to the rules passed by the legislature in 2020. So on this slide, we have a few highlights from those new biosolids rules. This is not an extensive list, but these are key points of the new rules. Eligible land application areas had to have a greater separation between the land surface and water table. Producers had to enroll and adopt best management practices found in the relevant commodity FDEX manual. And nutrient management plans are now required to address crop needs and land application rates for both nitrogen and phosphorus. All permittees had until July 1st, 2023 to come into compliance with these new biosolids rules. For the applied research projects for which I'm providing the update today, sampling occurred before or immediately after these new biosolids rules were implemented. Therefore, we did not expect to be able to observe any effects on water quality from the new rules. As I mentioned before, DEP was interested in continuing to investigate management issues on biosolids and provided the district $1.9 million to fund the work plan outlined here. One of the key goals was to shift our investigation from basin scale observation to in-field and edge-of-field measurements to better understand what was happening in pastures and their soils. This work was organized into two areas: data collection to improve our understanding of how much could be applied and where it could be applied, and investigation of solutions to reduce environmental impacts and produce other beneficial products. We've contracted with a range of university and private sector partners with diverse skills to leverage their expertise. This includes the companies and institutions shown on the slide here. Next, I'll give an update on the phases of this work that we and our partners have been conducting. The first project highlighted here by the red box was a project to collect additional water quality data. Our expanded water quality sampling project was designed to collect water quality samples both closer to sites of biosolids application and during storm events when the majority of nutrients are exported. The map on the left shows the proximity of the Upper Basin project in areas which have received land application of Class B biosolids. Those are shown in the purple. And it also shows our stormwater sampling sites with yellow dots that were part of this enhanced sampling effort. Sites were also established in watersheds with no biosolids application but with pastures so that we could measure background concentrations. Some key results of our storm event sampling demonstrate that areas downstream of land application sites have much higher phosphorus concentrations than pastures without applications. and that more intense application results in correspondingly higher phosphorus concentrations. As expected, based upon the nitrogen and phosphorus ratios in biosolids, the runoff of phosphorus is much greater than nitrogen, with some locations having phosphorus concentrations 9 times higher than pastures with no history of land application of biosolids. I'd just like to point out something I mentioned earlier, that these were all collected prior to the 2023 implementation of the new biosolids rules, and therefore they don't give us any insights to the impacts of the rule changes. We're going to continue to evaluate our monitoring data now that the rule changes have occurred, and keep evaluating whether we see changes.
So just to sort of, it's banned in the South. We've studied it. We've determined that when it's put down, there's 9 times in certain cases more phosphorus. Phosphorus is bad because that causes algae blooms. Is that a good summary?
Yes, that's true.
Okay.
But also that it's being applied at different rates now.
But we're not going to move on anything because there's a DEP rule that we can all agree is a half measure. And now we got to wait to see how that half measure does before we decide whether to do something else.
I don't know. I can't really comment on the rule, but
all right, go ahead.
This is under the regulation of DEP. They have taken the information that we've worked with them to get, and their own information, and they've developed a rule that has the characteristics that they talk about that address some of the factors that caused or contributed to the increased runoff in phosphorus. And one of the primary ones being that previously you only had to match the nitrogen needs of the plant, and this has a lot of phosphorus in it, and so you got a lot of extra phosphorus with your nitrogen. Now having to back that off to where you apply only the plant needs of phosphorus and nitrogen, should dramatically limit the amount of biosolids that could be put on particular properties, and then to try to address the likelihood of it moving into the groundwater table and sideways into the water body.
So it helps.
So it helps. So we don't know the extent.
And maybe I'm being too critical by calling it a half measure.
I think they did. I think they worked hard to address the issues that were problematic with the original rule, and so we'll,
right.
We will
Keep
see
studying.
what happens since that.
Right. The old studies. They didn't study in South Florida anymore. They just banned it.
That would take care of it.
Yeah. You're recognized. Go ahead.
So, are you saying that the new 2023 rules now require them to also look at the phosphorus content when they're applying, where in the past, I know biosolids had a higher ratio of phosphorus and they often would apply according to the nitrogen needs, but therefore they were over applying for phosphorus. Is that going to change with the new rules?
Yes, that'll change. You have to do soil testing, and then if you have a certain amount of phosphorus in the soil, then you have to apply based on phosphorus needs and not nitrogen. So,
so biosolids are what goes through the sewer process, and then what isn't digested into effluent becomes sludge, and then the sludge becomes dried out for biosolids. Is that so? Typically, what I don't think also that we're not looking at, which does concern me with biosolids, is the amount of PFAS and pharmaceuticals and heavy metals that can be in there. We're talking about nitrogen and phosphorus only right now, and we're not really measuring for those other very harmful effects that can be concentrated into sludge and therefore biosolids. I know in South Florida, and there's been studies on fish just with effluent and the amount of pharmaceuticals that we're finding in the meat or flesh of fish. So again, we're not looking at some of these other also harmful harmful effects of the biosolids downstream at this point, because those things really, the PFAS and the heavy metals really don't, and pharmaceuticals for that matter, don't really end up they end up downstream, or they end up as Doug was talking about in the meats that we're eating from the cattle that graze on that grass. So for all those reasons, I'm concerned about biosolids. Understanding that the agriculture and the ranchers are going to fertilize with something, and this is cheaper. I get that, and there's also, I know, a way to balance the biosolids. It costs more money to balance the nitrogen and phosphorus within those biosolids if we're going to end up taking in some places. But it costs more money. But what we're asking is South Florida, as they move up all of their extra biosolids to us, we've been accepting them. We're just taking all these extra things, and I don't think the biosolids. I mean, they can still fertilize. It will cost them more, or it will cost South Florida more to balance the nitrogen and phosphorus within their biosolids that get shipped up here. So, those are just some of my comments on biosolids, and I somewhat agree. Not somewhat. I totally agree with Rob that if it was not good for the goose down in South Florida, why is it good for the gander in St. John's? I also know that the St. Johns River Basin takes almost, I think it's in excess of 80% of all biosolids created in the state of Florida ends up being applied in our basin. So that's also concerning. Doug? Oh, I'm sorry.
No, it's okay. I'm
now done.
No. That was, amen, brother. I just want to go in order, Doug. Cole had got my attention first, and he hadn't had a chance to talk. Then I'll go to you. You're recognized.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Chris, I can't echo what you said anything more. I'm very concerned about and frustrated. Frustrated in that our board here is taking, and our citizens are taking on the responsibility for all of this excess phosphorus and nitrogen, and we're bearing the cost for that. Because I mean, we all see how much we spend every year to try to remove excess phosphorus and nitrogen from the system, and here we are taking on literally tons of it, and we have no real ability to stop it. I'm concerned about the PFAS chemicals and the forever chemicals and the heavy metals, same as you, and I don't even know if we have any real studies on that to really know what's there, but it's concerning. So anything we can do, a lot of times we talk about the stick, regulations to stop it, but I think we also have to look at the carrot side. The Deseret Ranch is the biggest landowner in the district, and if they're voluntarily stopping this practice, I really hope that we can find a way to incentivize that conduct or reward that conduct from our other landowning partners, because it is an expense for them. They do have an agricultural operation to run. They are in the business of producing cattle, and to take that voluntary step for the good of the whole basin, I think deserves recognition, because it's a cost.
Could we, Mike, could you reach out to our friends at Deseret? They are the biggest landowner, I believe, in our district, and just sort of confirm kind of where we are on that. I'm not looking to have a big public, I'm really not. I just because I heard the same thing, and that's very encouraging. And I mean this as a way to recognize and appreciate, but just kind of understand the particular facts and shoot us an email on that front.
I can do that. Yes.
All right. Thanks.
I would love to
Go
see an overlay of the Deseret Ranch on this map to see kind of where it fits with the heavy concentrations. But that's all I have. Thank you.
Oh, thank you. And you may, and to highlight some, forget the environment, which is what we're concerned about here, the effects on the environment. From a purely economic standpoint, it is a absolute cost shift from South to North Florida, while we are spending more and more money to pay for their sins, just from a purely economic standpoint. So our taxpayers are bearing the brunt and the cost of the fact that they don't want to deal with this. And so it's more than just the environmental impacts and the insanity of us investing tens of millions, hundreds of millions of dollars on projects, only to see those projects' effectiveness be blunted by this policy. Putting that aside, it's just a pure cost shift from a purely economic standpoint. You recognize, Doug?
Is this on? Yeah. I serve on the Regional Planning Council, Treasure Coast, and we meet jointly with South Florida's Regional Planning Council, and we've had meetings in the past on just this issue. And to me, the technology is there to nuke what you flush already, but it's cheaper for Dade and Broward and Lee County. I think the three biggest regions that ship to our area are Tampa, Miami, and Lauderdale. Palm Beach has gotten much better with not only their recycling, but with this gray water issue. I think they're the head of the curve. Palm Beach County is. But certain counties find it, as the chairman just mentioned, it's cheaper than building a whole new waste treatment plant for $100 billion or however much they cost these days. It's cheaper to give a farmer a check and say, will you take our gray water? Will you take our biosolids? And so you can't blame a farmer that's going to get a check and free fertilization of their pastures because it's legal in the state and they get a check. And some of these operations need a check that are raising cattle or not doing so well with what they're growing. Citrus, we quit this. Our growers looked at this 5-7 years ago, and the two operations in Indian River quit immediately because they didn't like what they saw with what in their canals. So our industry, one, we can't do it for fresh because other countries don't allow it that we ship to. Processed was looking at it and they quit. So our industry quit it a number of years ago. But the technology is there if the major urban areas are willing to tax the citizens that are flushing their toilets in that area. So it can be done.
Well, it's the public policy. To your point, understand that the vast majority of these wastewater and water utilities are governments.
Yep.
They're either government owned or government controlled.
Yep.
So this is the policy of the government to sell to the farmers.
Oh yeah.
I mean, they can say that we want our utilities to run like a business and and all of that, and we don't control it. Yeah, you do control it.
Yeah,
you do. We all control it. We elect the people who appoint the people to those boards. That is the government doing this.
Yeah.
And the government can stop it tomorrow. But look, one more. I was in the legislature when we did the bill, and I was cared about this issue, and we started down this road of these DEP rules. It wasn't enough. Okay. And the fact of the matter is, this board, at the end of the day, we do not possess the authority we possess the authority to study it as we are doing. We possess the authority to show the effects that are happening, which we are. We possess the authority to try to mitigate it, which we do with these millions of dollars that we pay. But at the end of the day, it's up to the legislature and to deal with it. And we either deal with it or they either deal with it or they don't. And we didn't do enough when I was there. We did a little. We did more than others had done, but we didn't do enough. And they need to finish the job. It's as simple as that. But anyway.
Yeah, I'll just make the point that I don't normally look to Europe for what we should do, but in Europe they don't allow it and they incinerate it. So there is other options, and incineration or disposing of it in a better way is available. And that's maybe something that maybe the legislatures could look at and see, how do we dispose of it and not apply it to our lands. Like I said, I think there's some other chemicals and things in here that we're not paying attention to that are going to come back to bite us or haunt us in the future. So.
Well, the legislature did create a new fund to fund things like you're describing, right? For biosolid remediation. That hasn't been, the fund is there, it's existing, just hasn't got any money in it yet. Okay. But it's a step. I mean, that's good. It's better than not having the fund available to put money into. And it's acknowledging that everyone has a role to play in, making this happen. You know, it isn't just on. It's a societal. It's an all hands on deck situation. Yes, sir.
Mr. Chair, since we're doing some testing of all the biosolids and things like that, and we're worried about chemicals and stuff, and I might be talking a little bit out of school, but I think I know what I'm talking about a little bit. But mill organite, which is a fertilizer, is really Milwaukee's dry solids. And so that's really what mill organite is, Milwaukee organite. And so it would be interesting if we got some mill organite and tested to see if, because I've read the reports like Chris talked about the fish having different blood pressure medications and things of that nature's in them, the keys and things like that from the septic tank waste. It would be interesting to see if their process has solved that problem, because that is a solution. It may not be the solution, just like Chris talked about it, the burning and things of that nature. But since we have our own labs and everything, it would be interesting just to test to see if they have the same heavy metals and everything in mill organite, just because mill organite is what we're talking about, and it's a solution, so we could have flour organite.
I think the technology is, I think that Doug hit it on the head. I mean, it just costs a lot of money. All right. And your budget is our collective budget. I'm not even talking about the state budget. I'm talking about our budget, your family's budget, the farmer's budget, the federal government's budget, DEP's budget. I mean, you just got to figure out how important it is, because it costs a lot of money, you know. Utilities budgets, at the end of the day, they got to bear. But they came to the table in Black Creek and some other things, and we're just going to have to be creative moving forward on these things, because it just can't keep going like this. It just can't, and but it costs money. But anyway.
Well, Mr. Chairman.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll just follow on by saying that
Yes.
just watching how this has evolved, I mean, clearly the application or the disposal of these materials is going to go towards the path of least resistance. And right now, that's what this is. We are the path of least resistance. So giant technology like incineration and all, lots of headwinds and regulatory overlays that make that expensive as well as difficult to get done, unless you've got people who will help you with that. Same thing down south, and taking it back, giving farmers a little bit, or ranchers a little bit better incentive to pull some of this back into a basin where it sounds like people were in a panic. The axe came down, we're not doing it anymore. And maybe the regulations, and through these studies will learn that the regulations are a bit too tight, and maybe they need to be tweaked and give these landowners some opportunities to use this stuff. And as far as the heavy metals, that should be part of their testing already. They should be having to look at that. PFAS, still an evolving issue, but you're right, Doug. It can be scary, and that could drop the hammer on all of this if it came out that, or the feds ever end up regulating PFAS, like it's a.
I think that's where everything's headed.
I think it is.
Right.
I think it is, and it's going to be scary for some landowners if that happens. So there's a lot of headwinds there. But my main point is, if we can figure out how to create paths, as you said, that incentivize or make it a little easier to do something beneficial with this stuff, I think it will just naturally gravitate that way. People aren't stupid. These cities aren't stupid. They want to get rid of this stuff. They have to. So that's our challenge, and I'm hoping that as we go into phase 2 of your studies, that maybe we'll see that some of the rulemaking has had a benefit. I hope that's what it'll show. I see another milestone coming, and maybe it'll be in your next presentation somewhere down the road. Hopefully not 10 years from now.
What I don't understand, I should have filed a bill when I was there, but I mean, when the utility produces this stuff, just say a law saying, look, produce it all you want. You know that it's not very good. The only rule is you gotta keep it in your jurisdiction. You gotta dump it in your dump
The
it in your
landfill.
landfill or
Mhm.
dump it in your waters there.
Yeah.
That would end that quick.
That would
That
create
would.
some
Instead they
some
send it to us to let us deal with it.
yeah.
But anyway,
Anyway,
yeah, go
I
ahead.
look forward to hearing the rest of what he has to show.
We'll get there. But this is we've been waiting for this one for a while, and we're not. This isn't the last time. We're going to bring. I want to hear what IFAS has to say yet, because I understand they had a weird report come out recently. But anyway, go ahead, Doug.
Yeah, Miss Preston, is there a way to approach this through Class 1 water bodies that are in the upper basin to take a step to where the biosolids that would impact a Class 1 water body, like, for example, Coco's water supply comes from a lake inland of Cocoa Beach that's in the upper basin? Is there a way to take a half step to say any water bodies in the upper basin or in the St. John's basin that are Class 1 water cannot have or be applied to these biosolids?
So that would also be a collaborative effort, not just with us, but with DEP as well.
I mean, that's the whole reason. If I listened to the arguments in South Florida, and it was all about Lake O, Class 1 water, provides the water for Cluess and South Bay, all the little towns around there, and also the water table's only 2 feet down in all of South Florida, and in Central Florida it might be all of 6 feet, maybe. We're not that high up. Any river county, you take a shovel down and you can, your second dig, you're in the water table. So just a thought, because we have a lot of Class 1 water in the upper basin.
As far as the application, the DEP has the jurisdiction to make the rules, but certainly we can share our science and all of the discussion here as well.
The moment that they applied it to a ranch on the west side of the upper basin in Uber County, we had an algae bloom and blue cypress, as you all know, almost immediately. So the impacts are almost immediate. When you apply it, you see it very quickly. Anyway, thank you.
You're right. Thank you everyone for indulging us all with our discussions. This is very important, as you can see, to all of us here on the board. That's why it's on the agenda. It keeps coming up, and so these are very important discussions, and I really do appreciate the staff's patience while we kind of do it this way, where we kind of, when we think of something and we see something, we go ahead and deal with it at that moment. So with that said, you're recognized to continue.
All right. So next, I'd like to present the key findings from our field scale project. It's the second project on the list. For the field scale project, we wanted to measure how much biosolids phosphorus was being moved off fields, and whether the movement was via surface water, surface runoff, or groundwater. The graphic here shows the pathways which biosolids phosphorus can take from where it is applied all the way down to the edge of field ditches. In addition to surface runoff, a shallow water table during the wet season can mobilize phosphorus that is stored in the upper layers of soil and transport it through the groundwater. UF researchers instrumented a ranch with biosolids application. They instrumented it with multi-level groundwater sampling wells and surface water sampling equipment. Both the groundwater profiles and surface runoff concentrations showed significantly elevated phosphorus associated with repeated biosolids applications. Likewise, high runoff concentrations during storm events showed that surface runoff was also a significant pathway for phosphorus movement. This study demonstrated that a significant amount of phosphorus moves out of the topsoil application zone and moves through both the superficial groundwater and through surface runoff. In this study, we also wanted to look at how long phosphorus may leach from soils with high biosolids application. This figure shows phosphorus concentrations from soil cores that were rinsed with simulated rainfall. The cores came from both the active and legacy fields. Legacy fields had not had application for either 1 or 15 years, depending on the site. Following initial higher phosphorus concentrations with the early rinses, the concentrations stabilized but remained at concentrations much higher than water quality targets for all study sites. Furthermore, these concentrations persisted through the entire experiment, which approximated 5 years of rainfall leaching. The conclusion of this study was that excess land-applied phosphorus will continue to release over years and potentially decades, causing elevated phosphorus concentration in groundwater and runoff.
Yes, ma'am, you're recognized.
Are you measuring dissolved phosphorus here, or total phosphorus, or partitioning out the different forms?
Yeah, this particular one is a dissolved phosphate. Okay. Generally, what's the most mobile is the phosphate.
Not good.
Not good. That is our collective interpretation of the data. I'm with you. Go ahead.
So I'm going to move on to the third and fourth projects, which are on the side of remediation. For these projects, we wanted to look at ways to both remediate excess phosphorus from biosolids, as well as ways to reduce phosphorus in biosolids to make it a more beneficial product. First, I'd like to discuss our ongoing environmental remediation pilot project. Should I wait on Chair Bradley? Oh, sorry, it's waiting on you. With the field study completed, and our understanding that both surface water and groundwater paths contribute to phosphorus loss from fields, we've designed our examination of potential remediation techniques. This work will be conducted on district-owned land where biosolids were last applied in 2008, where we know both phosphorus transport pathways are important, the surface and groundwater. We were going to put this experimental setup last fall, but with the hurricanes, it made the site very, very wet. And so this work has been delayed a bit by wet conditions. Should I wait on the chair?
Go ahead.
Last project I'll discuss is the resource recovery project, where we looked at the costs and removal efficiency for bolt-on technologies for existing water reclamation facilities. If enough phosphorus can be removed during the wastewater treatment process, then a more beneficial biosolids product may be produced. It's important to note we did not evaluate more extensive or newly built facilities. This was just retrofit technologies that could be applied to existing wastewater treatment facilities. Our resource recovery component was completed earlier this year and provided the following findings. With these technologies, you could recover about 19% on average of the phosphorus from biosolids. You could do that at a cost of about $67 per pound of phosphorus, which is pretty good for phosphorus removal. However, the magnitude of phosphorus recovery we could get with this modeling we did, it was not enough to substantially improve the nitrogen to phosphorus ratio, which is what we discussed earlier was the initial problem, the phosphorus enrichment. So as a single solution, it's probably not the only thing that you can do. You know, you'd have to do something else along with this to remediate the phosphorus in the biosolids coming out of the plants. Lastly, here's the overall study timeline. You can see that we will complete the stormwater sampling this year, while the remediation study still has roughly 2 years for completion. This is driven by the observation that the majority of phosphorus transport occurs during the wetter periods of the year, and we want to capture 2 wet seasons for the work. And so that's my last slide, and I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Yep, I have.
Yes, you're recognized.
So how will you quantify the post-2023 rule performance?
Right now, I think the only monitoring we have is our ambient water quality monitoring with the district. And so we have, the watersheds that we monitor. The ambient is the monthly stuff that we've done since 1995. So we have probably 10 sites or so that we can look at. There's no additional funding to do any more targeted sampling for, post this project.
That's DEP funding, is that
Right.
I would think that that's a real opportunity, because you can't even begin to assess the benefits of their rule without some targeted data to support your findings. And if it is working, that might be something that opens up opportunities in other areas back down south again, that says, hey, we think we've got a better way to do this under some conditions. Maybe there's a way to encourage people to keep their solids closer to home. So I would just advocate for that in future funding opportunities, and give you guys what you need to finish out your analysis here.
Excellent. Chris, you're recognized.
As we move forward, though, we've got some new rules that do restrict the where and how that the biosolids can be applied, but we still have pre-2023 permits where it's being applied under the old rules. Is that correct or not correct?
I followed this as best I can in Oculus, but I believe there was a kind of an RAI period with a few of the ranches, so I'm not sure where they are with that.
Any other questions right now? This has been great. Any other questions? Well, this won't be the last time this is visit. We need to keep, this is to me one of the major issues over the next couple of decades. And that's how we try to look as a board, right? Is these long-term trends, trying to figure out ways to be partners with both our fellow parts of the government and our landowners, who, I mean, we do things for the ag community. We understand the importance of the agriculture community to our region and to the state as a whole, and so we're looking to figure out a way forward that works for the whole ecosystem.
The ideal thing would be for the cattlemen to get a product from the urban areas that is not harmful to the environment, that is beneficial to the grasses that the cattle eat, a more neutralized product that it doesn't have harmful metals or chemicals in it, or an abundance of phosphorus. If they can neutralize it at their plants, that's where the money needs to be spent. It's not for some of these Band-Aids that we're looking at. We want the cattlemen to have a good beneficial product. They need good healthy grasses, and with a little more technology and another step and a bigger investment, you could probably get there. You can deliver a more neutralized but beneficial product that everybody can live with. And that'd be the best of all, because Florida produces a lot of cattle. We have, we're second to Texas, I think, in cattle production.
Yeah, and I love steak.
Yeah, I love steak too. Me too. There's nothing like a great prime rib. Anyway, I just think, there are steps to be taken financially that where we all benefit by that step, because the cattlemen need that step, and we as a society, we haven't figured out what we do when we flush our toilet. We still, here we put people on the moon, and we have the cell phones, and we have great technology. We got Elon Musk, but we still, when we flush the toilet, it's still the same old boo, boo, boo. I can't say that, but
yeah, it's we haven't mastered how to handle that one.
Nope.
It's a head scratcher, huh? Before we, Mr. Registrar, I got it for next steps. Is anything that we're being asked to do as a district in terms of this project studying and everything deal with sort of next steps like solutions, or is it just diagnosing the problem? And I just am making sure that we understand, Doug's brought up the idea of you know, the landowners having a product that's modified from whatever is being taken from the utilities right now. There's obviously things the utility can do that, you know, uh, I think it was Ron was talking about certain technologies dealing with the utilities, how they can do it on site, and you know, or what. I assume that it's there's not necessarily a silver bullet. It's more of a suite of options to do, move forward. Obviously, you can ban it, and that's an option, right? Um, and that could be one of the lists on the list. But also the idea of you know, solving some of these economic pressures, whether it be on the utility and their ratepayers or the landowners and who need to, you know, have their property prepared to either grow or feed cattle, you know, or whatever it may be. Is that a part of anything that we've been tasked to do?
So the majority of our tasks have been, you know, gathering data, uh, measuring things about it so that you have more information to where you can make policy decisions and things like that with that data in hand. But we also have, you know, he talked about the resource enhancement and recovery, where we looked at bolt-on technologies as to what you could do to reduce it. And obviously that wouldn't necessarily solve the problem by itself, as he mentioned, but that's another tool that could be evaluated in those kind of discussions. And the final part, which is more related to that, not necessarily in handling, you know, the future part of it, but in dealing with the legacy loading that's occurring that we showed in some of the results, the infield pilot projects, where we're trying to figure out, is there a way to bind it? Is there a way to keep it from running off site? That could also go toward, you know, a different way of applying it with a
Right.
mixture or something like that. But there's not, the goal is to produce all of this information, and then I think DEP would work together with us and decide, you know, is there something else that they need to do from that standpoint. I do feel like additional monitoring is something that we definitely need to continue on. Maybe something in excess of our normal monitoring, so that we get a little more detailed data. I think would be valuable, especially as the rule change goes into effect, so that we can see if things, you know, had any measurable effect on that. So that's something we might want to consider in the future. But
so you have the legacy load, and then you have making sure that you don't, if you're digging a hole, stop digging issue, right? I get that. What I would ask, if there's no objection from my colleagues on the board, is for the staff to prepare a list of a suite of things to deal with legacy load as well as stop digging, and this is for our edification. We understand that we understand the limitations of our, you know, rulemaking or lack thereof. We understand that we don't make state laws. We understand all these things, but we also understand that we're spending hundreds of millions of taxpayer dollars doing certain things to mitigate this, and we need to understand it better so that we can, at least whenever we go and ask for things from the legislature, we can say, look, we can ask for this to fix problem X, but if you just do this, it'll cost you a tenth of it. Is that fair? Is everybody comfortable with that? And we're looking to be collaborative. We're not looking. This is not sticking. This isn't a big. I mean, you know, we're literally looking to solve a problem, and we understand that it didn't happen overnight, and we understand that there's a lot of people doing their best. All right, Ms. Winkler, I understand we have some comments from the public, which we welcome.
Yes, sir. The first commenter is Lisa Reineman, representing St. John's Riverkeeper.
Great. Hi, Lisa.
Good morning, everyone. Lisa Reineman, St. John's River Keeper, and I just want to start by thanking you all for this robust conversation on what really is a wrong to the St. John's River and to our district. This was, debated many years ago, and these protections were granted in South Florida, but not to our watershed. And all the information you heard today is things that your staff presented during the 2018 Technical Advisory Committee, just confirmed with more data. And so we appreciate the staff and everyone's into looking into this and getting data that we can use moving forward. A couple of things that weren't mentioned. One of the things that was granted to South Florida in addition to this ban is the utilities were able to charge a rate to literally truck their pollution problems to the St. John's River watershed. So they were able to do a rate increase specifically for the purpose of shifting their pollution here, as well as the cost, as the chairman mentioned. Also, this is not just domestic sewage, it's commingled with industrial waste. And so that's where you get more of the PFAS and heavy metals and issues, which the Department of Environmental Protection has identified as a PFAS source. They know biosolids a source, but they're not testing for it. So I believe that the farmers are also part of the ones that are getting taken advantage here, because that's cleanup they're going to have to deal with in the future when this is and will be regulated. And this conversation cannot come more quickly enough. I do acknowledge all of the diligence that's put into it. It's the timing of the rainy season. But right now, the largest hauler of biosolids from South Florida to the St. John's River watershed, they are requesting a pass not to meet the new rules. They have applied for variances on 4 of the large sites in the headwaters of the St. John. So they don't even want to abide by the new rules that they've known were coming since 2018. Luckily, DEP is asking some good questions. They just followed up in a February 5th letter on more details, but I think it's important that the findings of your team, your staff, this hard work that's happening, that is communicated, or we won't even get a chance to evaluate what's happening with the 2023 rules, because they may grant them a variance, and that would be really problematic, because that's 5 more years is what they're requesting of status quo with ramping that down. And then I just want to finish just to underscore about the legacy problem. Back in 2018, we met with Drew Bartlett, who was the deputy director at DEP over the Technical Advisory Committee at the time. And when I asked him how this could happen, he said the water quality side wasn't talking to the water permitting side. So we want to make sure that we don't make that same mistake. He also said it would take decades to undo the legacy pollution problem of this. So that legacy stuff, not only is it real, we've known this for a long time. So thank you for your diligence on this. Thank you for looking forward. And I just want one thing I forgot to mention. I worry about this variance language. If you read it, that they may be making a play at the legislature this session to try to get relief, and we want to make sure we don't lose ground either in the permitting realm or legislatively. Thank you very much for your time and your diligence today.
Thank you. Appreciate your thoughtful comments. Go ahead.
Mr. Chris Farrell, Audubon, Florida.
Hey, Chris.
Good morning. Chris Farrell, Audubon, Florida. First, I'd like to say I really appreciate biosolids being abbreviated as BS in the presentation. I will say, I started working on environmental issues down in the Everglades, and it is an extremely sensitive system, and the 10 parts per billion phosphorus is a real ecological limit that periphyte and based wetland does change. But the differences we have throughout Florida, our wetlands, they can't really take that much more. And the amounts of phosphorus we're talking in biosolids are at least an order of magnitude above that. So it is true that, we definitely can't have them in the Everglades, but that doesn't mean they're safe to put anywhere else in the state at the levels we're applying them. I think there's a lot of potential solutions. South Florida solution was send it up here. But we have to think about, big picture. What's sustainable moving forward? And just like, your personal bank account budget, money in, money out, those have to be equal or have more money going in. That's always good. Or else at some point you're going to go bankrupt. We're taking phosphorus out of the ground. We're making fertilizers, and then we're introducing them into our ecological systems. At some point, we have to pull it out. make it not bioavailable. At least pull it out of circulation in ecology, or else we're going to keep building up legacy loads everywhere throughout the state and have water quality problems forever. So we have to think about the amount of phosphorus that's going in. Just think about this like a budget. So moving it around and putting it in different systems is just going to create problems over time. Thank you so much for this discussion. I hope this will continue. The new things, there's some existing technologies that we should probably do more of, but putting more money into innovative technologies, looking at new ways of pulling the phosphorus out are really where we need to be spending money rather than on trucks to send this all throughout the state. I don't know, maybe if it went to Georgia or Alabama, would that, no, sorry, I've been watching a lot of SEC basketball, go Gators. Moving it anywhere is not a good idea.
Go Gators.
So yeah, this is complex. There's a lot of stuff that hopefully we'll keep talking about in the future. But again, for right now, I'd just say that, that eye on the prize. Think about, is this something that's actually removing it from the system, or is this something that's keeping it in the system just in a new way where it's getting, it's going to be somebody else's problem in the future. So thank you very much for this discussion.
I think Chris raises a good point. Look, I would hope that we would not want to do to somebody else what was done to us. That's not the answer. That was wrong what happened. And let's just not pass on a problem to somebody else. But and I say that collectively as a society in North Florida, not as on behalf of the board or the district. Mr. Register, we look forward to the staff putting that. Maybe if we could do it, we're not going to necessarily do an agenda item, but if we could have it done in 60 days, that would be great. And then we can decide collectively whether we want to have we'll get that information, decide collectively if you want to have further discussions as a board. Does that sound good? All right. Thank you, everyone. All right, we're going to move to item 6. We're getting to crunch time on some very important things that we've all been monitoring and working on and signing checks for a long time. So you recognize Mr. Jenkins.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and board members. My monthly update to let you know what's going on with the Black Creek and Crane Creek water resource development projects. My presentation will pretty much focus on the construction elements that are the areas of our biggest focus right now. First, we'll start with Crane Creek. Overall, the project is about 85% complete. There's a lot of work being done at the operable weir site right now, and you can see a couple photos in the upper right and lower right. Basically, right here, the south weir foundation is complete. The south abutment wall and center wall, they're also complete. And you can see that this is the south weir foundation. There's an abutment wall there, and then there's a side wall over here. So we should be, the weir right now, it was shipped out and flown out from California or from Colorado. It's now in place. They're now working on putting the south weir in, and sometime next week that should be complete. Some of the activities that remain on the operable weir location are the cofferdam removal of the sediment in the canal from complements of Hurricane Milton, and other site work, including the controls enclosure, driveways, and fencing. And they should all be complete towards the end of March. So this is coming right along. Moving on to the east pump station, about 85% complete. The pumps are now in the wet well. They're installed. The remaining plumbing and control systems are also being installed. The intake structure skimmer and associated hardware are also being installed, and that's right there. And the west pump station, that's the last major construction element for Crane Creek that's going on. It's about 75% complete. The wet well and control conduit are installed, and the concrete pad is formed as indicated in that lower left photograph, and that will be poured this week, probably on Wednesday. Once the pump crew is finished at the east pump station, they'll move here to install the pumps. The pumps for the West Pump Station are in control of the contractor. They're just not on site. So currently the project again is about 85% complete. We expect it to be done in April. And now I'm going to show you a few videos of these same areas. Okay, so this is the weir location facing east. On the north side of the canal, which is to your left, you can see all that construction is complete. The north weir is in place, but it's submerged, so you can't see it. On the south side, we're zooming in on where most of the construction is going on now. You can see that foundation that's been poured. That's where the south weir will be placed. And that, again, that abutment and sidewalls, they're all poured and done. So now that weir is just going to be installed. And then they'll remove the coffer dams at the east and south side. That coffer dam down the middle, that's going to stay in place, because any maintenance that has to be done in the future on the weirs, you can keep the water from the canal flowing through while one of the other side is being maintained. Moving to the east pump station, you can see the intake structure off to the side here of the M1 canal, and this is the pad here, which shows the wet well. You can see the wet well right here. The 3 pumps will go right there. So there's a gravity flow from the intake structure to that wet well. Once those pumps are installed, the water will be pumped out of a force main, and that force main will trend down this way right here. It's already in place, obviously, and then it'll jog a little bit this direction, and then this way, and this way is west. So that force main's about right here. And that'll go about 0.8 of a mile underneath I-95 to the stormwater treatment area, where it'll enter the stormwater. This water will enter the stormwater treatment area for nutrient removal. Lastly, the West Pump Station. Again, this week sometime, this pad here, this concrete pad right here, will be poured. There's the wet well right there where the 3 pumps will be put in. Here's the intake in the stormwater treatment area. As the east pump station, gravity flow into the wet well, that water will be pumped out, and there's a force main going down here, which is Heritage Parkway, and the distance is US 192, and then that force main will discharge in the St. John's Marsh discharge location. Lastly, this is where that force main coming from the east pump station will enter into this discharge structure, and it winds around in the stormwater treatment area where the phosphorus will be removed, and then move out, like I mentioned, from the West Pump Station to the St. John's Marsh. Moving on to the Black Creek Water Resource Development Project. Last week, water was pumped from Black Creek to fill the pipeline and ground storage tank at the treatment facility. This week, the pump testing began, so the vibration tests were conducted on each pump, as well as operational testing. All that testing went really well, so we're happy to report that. Leak testing and settlement testing of the ground storage tank is also underway. Yesterday, we ran water through from the pump station through cell number 2, where we're rinsing the aggregate and we'll pump into cell number 3 next. The water from both cells will percolate through our rinse basin temporarily, and the reason the water is going into those cells first is I'm happy to report either by today or tomorrow there'll be enough media in cell number 1. That will be done, but now we have to have the guy who's putting the plants in the cells. He will be on site on Thursday to put plants in that media in cell 1. And then when he's done with that, then we will switch over and start putting water through cell number 1. And at that point, we'll be running it down into that rinse basin and testing it to see if it meets water quality criteria. So we're hoping that a couple weeks down the road from now, we'll start running water through cell number 1 through the media. And sometime in March, after all the testing's been done and everything looks good, we hope to have it going into Alligator Creek. Couple videos on that. So this is cell number 1 about a week and a half ago. You can see the media is almost all done. The long reach excavator is putting it in place right here. You see those PVC risers? That's where the water from Black Creek will bubble up through those risers and spread out across that media, and then it'll percolate down, and the media will be used to remove color and nutrients from cell number 1, and hopefully that starts again in about 2 weeks. And from cell number 1, which is right below you there, we're moving on to cells number 2 and 3 as we pan up. You can, cells number 2 and 3, they are ready for media when it's available. So right now, again, we're running water through each of those to rinse the aggregate. Cell number 4 is next. You can see that the cuts have been made for installation of the under drains, and that's ready for the liner. So the water will go through, the treated water will go through those under drains and out for testing to make sure that it meets water quality criteria. That triangular piece is the rinse basin, which will actually be the stormwater pond once the whole site is completely developed. So that's cell number 5, which is ready now to have the under drains cut. And last but not least, that's cell number 6, where grading and external piping construction is ongoing. So it's moving along quite well. We're happy to report that that media production facility is now fully up to speed. All the improvements have been made. So it's full speed ahead right now. We're hoping that we can start catching up, and if we stay on schedule with production of the media, we should have enough media to fill cells 2 and 3. It won't be in the cells, but it'll all be delivered to the staging area at Camp Landing by the end of April. So there should be enough media produced to start loading up cells 2 and 3. And hopefully it'll be done by towards the end of April or early May. So we're starting to catch up. And that's all I have. Any questions?
I was just curious.
Ryan, you're recognized.
Thank you. Thank you. I was just curious, what is the media? What is the material of the media?
It's proprietary. A lot of it is water treatment plant residuals. That's kind of the basis of it. But the other type, there's 3 different additives that are all blended together to remove color and nutrients. And it's a proprietary type of mix. So I can't tell you exactly what's in it, but we'll try to get a little bit more information, let you know.
Yes, sir.
I'm just amazed at the amount of infrastructure you guys have been working on. I did notice on your South Weirport, looked like it was under the lights. So are you guys burning the midnight oil to get this done?
Yeah, those concrete pours start early.
Yeah.
So, those guys are out there pre-dawn.
Very cool.
So just to kind of cut to the chase, when is the faucet going to get turned on to the lakes?
Well, we're hoping at least by March we can start moving some water into sometime in March into
the first water
Yes.
would go into the Alligator Creek, which then goes to in sometime in March.
Yes, hoping.
And then things will ramp up over time.
And then we'll keep moving media into cell 2, then cell 3, and
these I get it. We got to get it right because this is for forever. So we want them to do everything just right.
Yeah,
and 2 weeks is not saving. 2 weeks isn't worth. We've come a long way. Get it right. But just trying to get a sense of it sometime in March. Yeah,
we're pretty happy over the last week and a half that all that pump testing went really well. You get to this stage and it's like, okay, let's make sure everything keeps working. So.
I just want to see the faucet turn on.
Right.
Thank you for all your good work.
Thank you.
Any questions? Yes. Any more questions? Go ahead.
I know we're not in high school anymore. I know we're not in junior high school, but I think this deserves a field trip sometime.
Oh, there's going to be a field trip, and we probably ought to have some sort of that do something like that, and we'll talk about would love everybody's input. We really are looking to sort of keep the meetings in Palatka because it keeps it's better for the staff, keeps all of our infrastructure. That's a major operation to move these around, and it's on Florida Channel and all of that. And this is basically a glorified TV studio at this point. But that all being said, I'm not opposed if somebody would like to at some point in time maybe do 1 or 2 meetings somewhere else. Just I don't want to go like it used to be. It's just me talking. But if the majority of you want to go in a different direction, please let me know. That I think we got a good thing going how we're handling things right now. However, maybe having 1 meeting out at Keystone or something like that might make sense, and then we could piggyback that with you know, going to check out the project and all that.
I personally am happy with the meetings that we're having.
Yeah.
I just want to go on a field trip.
Well, I'm just want to be mindful of everybody's time too. And if we could add the meeting and the field trip all in one day, that might be a worthwhile endeavor. As long, you know, does that sound like something maybe to pursue? Would everybody would be interested in that? Okay. Well, I'll start working with Mr. Register then on that. And if that's for the good of the order. Okay. Yes, ma'am.
I just like to see these. Okay. These.
Oh. Should go.
These drones shots is really fantastic.
They're awesome.
It's just, I mean, we had it last month too, and I was so excited, so happy because you feel you're there. So if we can, I think that's the area when we talk about technology, and that technology to see our projects so well presented. Thank you, Dale. I mean, this I'm happy whether here or somewhere else, as long as I can get those.
The drones, right.
The drones.
Yes, sir. Well, let me do Doug first, and then I'll go to you, General, because he got my attention first. You're recognized.
Yeah, years ago we used to have a committee, that projects committee, and then we used to go look at projects that were being done by the district, and I found it really helpful when I first got on this governing board to see. You know, I know my upper basin really well, but I didn't know the rest of the district, and I learned a lot about the plumbing in north central Florida, and so I think, to your point, I think one or maybe tops two a year, or maybe one a year, of a right project at the right time would be helpful, because we got to meet the staff that did it. They appreciated the exchange of being with the governing board and seeing that area. I found it really useful. And also, when I traveled with South Florida Water Management District, we did a lot of traveling to look at the plumbing in the Everglades Ag area and really understand how that big saucer worked. It's the biggest pumped area in the world. And so it's, I think, for the right reasons. And if we ever connect the upper basin with South Florida Water Management District, I'm going to urge us to go to that site and see where we can reconnect the districts. I hope that happens. So I found it, not all the time. I think overdoing the staff and having to travel is a little nuts, but on the right projects, in the right timing, I think it's really beneficial.
Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
Based on what Doug mentioned, you know, we talked about having joint meeting with South Florida, and perhaps visit Everglades. Is amazing. I visited Everglades when I did Leadership Florida. It really it changed me. It's just how massive it is, how amazing it is. So that's something, as part of when, Mr. Chairman, you consider offsite, perhaps you want to consider that as well.
Yeah, the scale is really amazing. What a great point. I mean, of this project, of the projects in the Everglades itself is it's a wonder of the world, and it deservingly so. It's an important part of our heritage as a state, and we it's a part of what we do up here too. With that bridge that you're talking about too, becomes even more relevant, right? Anyone else?
One comment.
Yes, you're recognized, General. Sorry, I should have gone to you earlier. Sorry,
Hey,
General.
sir. No problem. Just glad to be here. If you're looking at having a meeting and a field trip near location, you may want to look at Camp Blanding. They have a new $74 million training and conference center there. In fact, there's $1 million worth of electronics in their briefing room. That might be a good place to go. Then we could visit the cleaning ponds that you are building and go from there.
Can we call in bomb strikes and stuff too while we're there?
Oh yeah, you just have to dodge a little bit, but you'll do well.
Yeah. They have buttons. It's like it's fun. That is a wonderful idea. We want to make sure with the public access that isn't an issue. It shouldn't be, but and I'm sure they could work with us. That's a great idea.
They can do that.
Well, the general would know better than probably any individual other than like 2 people in the world that we can do that. And if he says we can do it, we can do it. Thank you, sir.
That would be cool.
And if we can't do it, he'll make sure we can do it. All right. We are still on item 6. Anything else on that? All right. We're going to move to public comment. Is there any cards?
No, sir.
Okay. That was item 7, public comment. We were able to hear from the public earlier, and those comments are much appreciated. Items 8 through 15 were approved on the consent agenda. 8 through 15. So then we'll go to 16, which we like to talk with our law firm. Ms. Aaron, you're recognized.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the board. I have updates on several cases for you this morning. The first is Barbara Ash versus the City of Deltona and the district. This is a third-party challenge to an environmental resource permit that authorizes modification to a stormwater management system in Volusia County. The first 2 attempts at petitions were dismissed with leave to amend for not meeting the pleading requirements that are contained in the Uniform Rules of Procedure. The second amended petition was filed last Friday, February 7th. It's currently under review. As far as next steps, if it meets the pleading requirements that are set forth in the uniform rules, then the next step would be referral to DOA as required by the statute. The next case is the Merriman case. This is pending in the United States District Court for the Middle District of Florida. The plaintiffs have obtained an extension of time to file their second amended complaint, and that expires this Friday, February 14th. The next 2 updates are on enforcement cases that the district filed in circuit court to enforce district administrative final orders. The first is the district versus Kirk Stephen Leifer as trustee of the C&K Family Trust. This case was mediated last month on January 21st. It did result in an impasse, which means no resolution occurred at the mediation, but staff is regrouping and continuing to brainstorm and to look for other potential resolutions to this case as we go forward. The second enforcement case update is the district versus Lima Efrain and Kelly Andres. This is pending in Seminole County, and after the respondents received their service of process, they contacted the district and indicated they'd like to discuss options for resolution. So I'm happy to report we'll be working with the respondents to hopefully meet that goal of resolving that enforcement case. And then the last matter is not in litigation at the time, but I thought it was worthy of updating you all. The district has been alerted to legal representation of several of the individual residents regarding flooding concerns at Miller Lake. They've hired a law firm that's investigating claims and asking potential parties to preserve potential evidence. So the district is on the list of folks copied on the letter, and so we have begun what the obligations of the Florida Rules of Civil Procedure require us to do to preserve that evidence. But I thought I would let you all know that several of them have hired a lawyer. And this concludes my report.
Thank you. And I know I had sent an email that everybody was copied on. Mr. House, I don't know what happened, but I added it. I realized, and we don't communicate by email. This was a one-way, just for the record, this was a one-way communication, which is permissible under Florida law. It's not a sunshine violation. But I copied all my fellow board members in an email to Mr. Register saying, hey, got this. That's with the Miller Lake folks. Could you give us an update, right? Mr. Register may or may not address it in his comments, and I say that because this changes things. If we got litigation going on and all that, I mean, that I don't feel like we don't litigate. Somebody wants to hire a lawyer and sue us. You've made a decision. We are guardians of taxpayer dollars. That's your right, but we're not going to sit here and talk about our cases and what we've done and not done, and make, because we have an obligation to our shareholders, which are the taxpayers of the people of this district. So anyway, don't worry about Mr. Register commenting on that stuff right now in light of what Ms. Preston has advised us. And if anybody has any wants to talk to the executive director offline about the matter. And this isn't meant to sound cryptic. We're doing a great job on this and other issues. I mean, there's nothing that we're worried about talking about or hiding or anything like that. I'm just saying, you guys want to get lawyers and sue us? We get it. You're right, but we're not going to talk about it in public meetings. Anyway. Yeah.
And maybe I should be talking offline, and that's fine.
Right.
But sometimes when litigation occurs in a drainage issue, it's like you're concerned with what you need to do and how you deal with it because of you can't brainstorm the same way in some respects.
Right.
And so the same thing happens in the medical profession, So that could stymie some of the solutions and the innovative thought. And that sort of messes things up because we as a board are trying to help people. I mean, that's where we're here volunteering our time. But at the same time now, I don't know if it's proper to say the pucker factor changes everything because of litigation, and therefore it's not as easy to help.
And again, we don't think we're liable for anything. We don't think we've done anything wrong. We don't think that, we're not talking about it because we're worried about you find out something we've done wrong. We haven't done anything wrong, but we can't control what you do. So that's my message to all those folks. Right. Anyway, thank you, Ms. Preston. All right, we're going to move to item 17, governing board comments. Anybody? Great meeting. That's my comment.
I have
it's a great board. I really appreciate the opportunity to serve with all of you. Everybody's they're so well respected and have accomplished in their own individual lives, and collectively it really means a lot to me personally to be able to work with you and benefit from all of your collective wisdom and individual wisdoms. But anyway, Mr. House.
Just when we were talking about the biosolid situation, it's sort of something that's specific to us, and I wonder if we shouldn't call it, and I don't know what you want to call it, but our woolly booger list for no other reason, because that's sort of like it's getting dumped on us, and so therefore it's something unique to our district, even though other districts probably have the same problem. But at some point, maybe we should have, there's an ongoing, every day there's permits getting done through the department. Every day there's code enforcement. Every day there's this, but there's certain big picture items. And so I don't know how you bring that up so someone could, because what's going to happen is a new state rep gets elected and they're going to say, hey, Ron, tell me what the heck's going on with the board. And you can explain what's going on a day-to-day operation, but then there's certain woolly boogers out there. And that's probably not the best political term to say. I think Justin Safety called them the BHAG problems, big, ugly, hairy, audacious problems or something like that he did. But I thought that we should probably consider maybe something like that, and those are things that Mike can sit there because new legislators all want to know what's going on. And hey, just so you know, this is a problem that's happening in our district that's unique.
Maybe it's something to add to our monthly hydrologic, and I don't know what the data is. I don't know what the data point is, but it's something to. Is that a good idea?
I think it's just something. It's one of our things we're trying to stay focused on.
Right.
And so,
we did it with the wells to stay on top of that initiative, and this is obviously something that we all are passionate about. Well, if we could, Mr. Register, think about what appropriate data points that we could be continually apprised of with regards to that issue, and discuss that further. Is that
we have like
good?
Monthly totals of how much stuff we get sent.
That might be the relevant one. Mr. Oliver suggested that, and I don't know enough about the details whether that's the best
in the permits or how they
right. And I don't even know that either, but we know it's a problem. That's a good idea. I like that a lot. Mr. Atwood.
That was the idea I was going to suggest, just to do permits every month.
Right.
Track them.
Oh, what a great, maybe have a map of the district and where it's being, let's show us every month where it's being put, and who are the major, where are the major recipients of it, and then maybe we can start having dialogues. Maybe that'll produce some helpful dialogue. over time on the matter. What a great. Thank you, Mr. House, and everyone for putting some meat on that bone. All right. Any other governing board comments? Item 18, Executive Director's Report and Calendar.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the governing board. I wanted to give a brief update on the recent fish kill out at Lake Apopka. I'm sure many of you are aware of that. There was an expansive fish kill reported in late January and over the weekend of February 1st and 2nd on Lake Apopka, primarily on the southern and western shoreline. The district has been working with FWC to investigate potential causes. There had been some other fish kills within that chain of lakes over the winter, which were unusual, and so FWC had deployed some dissolved oxygen samplers to determine what was the dissolved oxygen throughout the chain of lakes. So we had good information for that, for this event. And preliminarily, it doesn't look like the dissolved oxygen data from the lake, that they don't support the DO, low DO as a cause of that. They didn't get down low enough in the areas, at least, that they were being monitored. DEP, us, and I think FWC did some sampling to test for harmful algal bloom toxins, and the results came back where they didn't show any measurable detects of toxins in any of the samples. They looked at the idea that maybe some other type of runoff of toxin came into the lake, but there wasn't any recent rainfall events that would support that hypothesis of it. Disease was discussed as that, but that was thought to be unlikely just because there were so many species involved, a wide variety of species, and because of the spatial pattern and the abrupt start and stop of the event, that wasn't deemed likely either. Temperatures did drop fairly low, but not really low enough to kill the native species that were found that also were subject to the event. There is some speculation that rapid change in temperature from cold to warm that happened during that time period, that some of the bass and others can be sensitive to that, especially during spawning season, which is going on right now. FWC is doing some necropsies on some of the fish to see if they can get some other information, and we continue to gather data and work with them to try to determine the cause. But right now, they don't have a specific cause that they can point to, but the investigation will continue, and I'll keep the board updated as we get more information on that. We can go on to the first slide. On a more cheery note, land management staff represented the district at the 2025 Flatwoods Fire and Nature Festival, which was a big hit with the community, especially with kids. Kyle Madden and Jordan Ribete, hate to butcher his last name, brought the Wildland fire truck for kids to explore and have fun shooting at water targets. Garrett Anderson and Amy Copeland led tours through the Austin Cary Forest. The Florida Forest Service also gave an up-close look at controlled burns, walking the public through the burn planning and execution process. So big thanks to our staff who took some time out over the weekend to attend that event. Next. We want to say a big congratulations to Allie Pressel, our new Education and Outreach Coordinator in our communications group. She was selected for the Presidential Award for Excellence in Mathematics and Science Teaching, which is the highest honor for K through 12 STEM teachers in the U.S. She is one of only 107 educators nationwide recognized in the 2023 cohort and will represent Florida in the science category. Her dedication to STEM education, hands-on learning, and student success exemplifies the best in science teaching, and we feel fortunate to now have her on our team to help us educate the community on the district's mission. She will travel to Washington, D.C. to receive this prestigious award and collaborate with other top STEM educators from across the country. Next. The Bureau of Land Resources quickly sprang into action when the Florida Forest Service requested the district's assistance in combating a wildfire at Seminole Ranch Conservation Area. Special thanks to Graham Williams, Micah Thomas, Colin Ryder, Johnny Baker, and Doug Voltolini, who traveled to the site bringing essential equipment to navigate the terrain and help suppress those flames. Next. This is some good news. Staff spotted eelgrass near the boat ramp at Orange Creek Restoration Area, our first ever sighting of it here. And this reflects progress in the ongoing ecosystem restoration efforts. As you've heard before, eelgrass supports wildlife such as fish and birds while helping improve water quality by absorbing excess nutrients. Years of work went on to manage Cuban bulrush, an invasive plant that has contributed to conditions where the native species like this eelgrass can thrive. The growth of native plants like eelgrass shows nature's ability to recover when provided the right conditions, signaling continued progress in that area's restoration. Next. And lastly, members of the district's operation and maintenance recently repaired a bridge at Hart Island Conservation Area in Volusia County, ensuring safe access for land management and public recreation. The repairs help maintain critical infrastructure within the conservation area, supporting habitat preservation, water resource protection, and outdoor recreation opportunities. As far as calendar goes, the only thing we have on the March agenda right now is for the governing board, March 11th, here at district headquarters. This concludes my report.
Any questions for Mr. Register? Any questions for Mr. Register from the board? Seeing nothing else to come before the board today, this meeting is adjourned.